Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into something really extraordinary. Mysterious things seen in the sky by the U.S. military. We've got some never-before-heard details from sources you might not expect. Our mission here is to unpack footage, testimonies, all about these unidentified flying objects captured by, well, sophisticated military tracking systems. We want to explore what these sources tell us about the tech, the secrecy, and maybe, just maybe, the unknown. Our sources. They include bits from a news report, but also some highly detailed accounts of secret military footage. Really specific stuff. Think about, you usually picture UFOs as blurry home videos, right? Distant lights. But what happens when official advanced military systems catch something? What do those systems show?
Okay, let's get into it. What kind of evidence are we actually starting with? Is it that usual blurry stuff or something more solid?
Well, the initial shock really came from this startling videotape, and it originated from the U.S. Air Force itself.
The Air Force. Wow.
Exactly. So this isn't some grainy home video. These are pictures taken by a, sophisticated military tracking system. Okay. The real deal, then.
Absolutely. And the crucial part here is the technical detail. The footage isn't just visual. It includes these high-tech, computer-generated coordinates, almost like Star Trek, someone said.
Coordinates. Telling them what?
Precisely where the object is and exactly how fast it's going. The source even described it kind of like a Nintendo game for adults playing serious games.
Huh. Okay. So it's serious data.
Very serious data.
Oh.
Hard data, which makes these observations incredibly difficult to just, dismiss.
And the location, where did these videos come from?
Right, location is key. They were recorded near Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada.
Ah, Nellis. Home of the infamous Area 51.
That's the one, the UFO hotspot, where they design and test top-secret military aircraft.
And where some people think the government secretly investigates UFOs.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how the radar operators reacted. The guys watching the screens.
What did they think?
They were completely baffled, had no clue what they're looking at, apparently. Very surprised.
But these are trained professionals, right? They see stuff all the time.
Precisely. They're familiar with all sorts of military targets, aircraft, missiles, you name it.
Uh-huh.
So for them to be stumped, it meant this thing was truly anomalous. It didn't fit any known profile.
So we have the tech data, the location, the operator reactions. Is there a human perspective? Anyone who worked there?
Yes, actually. We have an insider's view. Someone we're calling Steve, who worked on top-secret projects right there at Nellis.
And what does Steve say?
He claims UFO sightings are, well, pretty common there.
Yeah.
And his take is pretty blunt. He said, this wasn't the first time I've seen the videos. I've seen other videos that were similar to this.
Okay.
And he adds, it just lent to the validity of what I already believed. They're here.
They're here. That's quite a statement, especially from someone with that kind of access. But how do you balance that? Such a strong personal belief against, maybe more ordinary explanations. Could his experiences still be interpreted differently?
That's a really important point, and it's a tension in the sources. Steve's perspective, based on what he says he saw and experienced, it's unwavering. He insists there's more to these videos than just, what you see at first glance. Says the radar operators, what they saw, they just can't explain what they are.
So he sticks by it.
Absolutely.
Right.
His belief is firm. It really highlights that gap between maybe official lines or lack thereof and these deeply held eyewitness accounts.
Let's zoom in on those Nellis sightings then. The source mentioned 2 videos obtained by hard copy. What did the first one show?
Right, the first one shows this tiny dot way out over the horizon.
And the operators.
They're having a hard time figuring it out. And the readout, the data, shows the object is over 10,000 meters away. That's about, 6.5 miles?
6.5 miles, okay.
And the implication there is significant. Whatever it is, it has to be solid. And large enough to actually spike the radar return like that.
Spike the radar.
Yeah, get a strong signal back. The source notes this target is fairly stationary for most of it until the very end.
Wow.
And it moves incredibly rapidly.
Wow.
So to send back that strong signal from that distance, it must have a pretty large radar cross-section, big enough surface for the radar waves to bounce off. That's why the source suggests the object was likely quite large and definitely solid, not just like a weather anomaly or something fleeting.
Okay, large and solid. And the second Nellis video, similar story.
Very similar scenario.
Okay.
This time, the target moves slowly above the horizon. And again, the operators are just scratching their heads, no clue what they're looking at.
So this really begs the question, what are they seeing?
Exactly. And the sources bring in Chuck Duraro, who's described as a nationally recognized expert on military tech.
What's his take?
He suggests, look, there are many possibilities, But, he says, if you can systematically rule out all the known explanations, planes, drones, weather, etc.,
Then what's left?
then, he says, you come up with some technology that is unknown, and that would be a very big story.
A very big story indeed. Did they try to get a clearer look? Any image enhancement?
They did. Hard copy apparently had one of the Air Force tapes digitally enhanced.
And what did it show?
The result was pretty striking, actually. No wings, no rotor blades visible on this craft, nothing conventional.
No wings, no rotors, so that leads right back to those two big questions the sources raised, doesn't it?
Right. Is it a visitor from outer space? Or could it be something homegrown, a classified military project, some high-tech flying machine hatched right there at Area 51?
Of course, there are always other possibilities, more, let's say, down-to-earth explanations.
Definitely. The sources mention Rich Terrell, an astronomer and optics expert. He offered a couple of ideas.
Like what?
Well, he suggested maybe it's just a weather balloon getting knocked around by the wind. Or perhaps the way it seemed to change shape wasn't real. It could just be reflection.
A reflection.
Yeah. He explained that, under those lighting circumstances, you get reflections, you get different changes in the way an object will appear without it ever changing shape. It's just the lighting that's changing.
So a trick of the light, potentially. A valid scientific point to consider.
Absolutely. It's a necessary counterpoint. How environmental factors can definitely play tricks on our perception and on cameras.
But Steve, the insider, he wasn't buying those explanations.
No, he remained convinced. Insisted there was more to it. That the operators knew what they saw, even if they couldn't label it. His belief, based on his experiences, stayed firm. There's no doubt these alien systems exist.
And what about the official word? Did Nellis or the Pentagon comment on any of this?
Predictably, perhaps, no comment. Both Nellis Air Force Base and the Pentagon declined to comment, according to the sources.
Familiar pattern.
It is. And it connects to that broader point made in the source material. The government often seems to hold more information than it's willing to share publicly. Just adds another layer of mystery, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Okay, so the Nellis footage is baffling enough. But you mentioned our sources reveal another secret Air Force tape with an even more dramatic story.
Oh, yeah. Here's where it gets really interesting. This specific account details another secret tape.
Secret how?
Well, this footage was also taken on U.S. government tracking cameras and radar, specifically from a site called S-13, which is within that huge 3 million acre bombing range at Nellis.
Okay. And who was operating the cameras?
The civilian contract workers. They controlled these cameras with joysticks. But crucially, the source says they were not classified to see the black-budgeted craft when they fly.
Black budget craft, meaning top secret, off-the-books projects.
Exactly, which adds this whole other layer. Secrecy, potential for accidental sightings.
And the backstory of this specific tape, you said it was dramatic.
It's wild. The source describes this tape as illegal. Apparently, it was smuggled out back in November 1994.
Smuggled out? Seriously?
Yeah, and the person who did it got caught, went to prison for it.
Wow. Went to prison? Just for leaking a tape. That tells you something about how sensitive they considered this footage.
It really does. Speaks volumes about the stakes involved, or at least how they were perceived. Anyway, the tape itself was obtained in '95. It was even shown on that TV show, Sightings.
I remember that show.
Right. And according to the source we're drawing from, even on that show, the quote was, so-called experts had no idea what they were looking at.
So even the experts were stumped by this one, too. What did the footage actually show?
Okay, so it starts with the object just as a blip on the radar, about 4.5 miles away from the camera site.
Just a blip.
Initially.
Yeah.
Then they use the military term launch up, which basically means they locked the radar onto the object like you would just before firing a weapon.
They locked onto it.
Yes. And crucially, the source states they locked radar on it, and they actually got what's known as a kill.
A kill? Like they shot it down?
No, not in that sense. In radar terms, a kill means they achieved a solid confirmed lock onto a target. It confirms something tangible was really there. It wasn't a glitch, not a mirage, not, swamp gas.
Got it. A confirmed solid target. And then what happened?
Then the craft's behavior just became extraordinary. It just took off so rapidly. The operator was apparently struggling to keep the camera on it, wrestling with the joystick control.
Struggling to keep up. So it was fast. And what did it look like visually?
Well, the source describes the main body simply as the black is the craft, just a dark shape, But it's the other details that are really mind-bending.
Okay, like what else did they observe?
For one, the radar itself was reportedly being jammed by the craft.
Jammed. The craft was interfering with the radar.
That's what the source claims. And when they zoom the camera in really close, it apparently looks like blades, or like a fluctuation around it, described as a massive field surrounding the craft.
A field, not physical blades.
Doesn't sound like it. More like an energy effect. And there's a very specific detail shared here. The source connects this to something called Linda's father's technology.
Linda's father's technology, what's that?
It seems to be a reference the leaker used, possibly pointing to the work of a specific, maybe unconventional physicist whose theories they believed explained what was happening. The key characteristic of this supposed tech: no moving parts, none.
No moving parts, that's huge. That changes everything about propulsion.
Absolutely. It completely challenges our standard understanding of engineering, of physics. Suggests a whole different paradigm.
And this field effect you mentioned, they described it more.
Yeah, the account emphasizes it, making the craft look like a hummingbird would have with the wings fluttering. But again, not actual wings moving. It's some kind of energy field effect.
A shimmering or fluctuation.
Wow. And it gets even stranger. When this object apparently got above the clouds, there was a visible white plasma field surrounding it.
Plasma, like lightning.
The description implies immense energy. Putting out the source estimates, at least 100 million volts, maybe higher.
100 million volts. Good grief.
And at one point, this plasma field looked like a clover leaf of 4 separate fields. I mean, the descriptions are just out there.
Truly incredible descriptions, but you said the source described the technology itself as simple. How can that be?
It sounds paradoxical, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yes, the source claims the underlying principle is very simple. It supposedly functions using a capacitor.
A capacitor, like in basic electronics?
Seems so. And the idea is the craft moves towards a positive charge by, and this is the quote, switching its polarity in the fields. That's how it achieves those instantaneous changes in direction.
Switching polarity. Instantaneous movement. If true, that implies a grasp of physics we just don't have, or maybe aren't applying.
Exactly. A potentially fundamental principle that's simple in concept, but revolutionary in application.
And what about inside? If this thing is zipping around, changing direction instantly, what's it like for anyone or anything inside?
Well, connecting this to the bigger picture, the source claims the experience inside is equally astonishing. They're supposedly inside their own gravity field.
Their own gravity field.
Yeah, meaning there's no sensation of movement whatsoever. There's no stress. Zero.
Zero G-force. Even during high-speed maneuvers.
Apparently. Imagine traveling at incredible speeds, making impossible turns, potentially covering vast distances, and feeling absolutely nothing. No push, no pull.
That just completely rewrites the rule book for travel, doesn't it? Makes you rethink, well, everything from sci-fi to basic physics.
It really does. That whole concept, no moving parts, that describes simplicity of the design. It's fascinating, especially when you think about the complex ways we imagine things like reverse engineering, captured craft might work.
Yeah, this suggests maybe a completely different, perhaps more fundamental approach to propulsion and physics altogether. Wow. Okay, what a journey we've just been on. Through military radar screens, secret tapes, insider accounts, all pointing towards phenomena that challenge easy explanation, we've really seen that core tension, haven't we? Between what these advanced systems are apparently seeing, what we think we know, and what just remains unexplained.
Absolutely. And we've looked at the different ways people try to make sense of it.
Yeah.
Classified military projects or truly unknown technology, all happening against that backdrop of official silence, that no comment.
So why does digging into all this matter for you, listening right now? Well, it forces you to question assumptions, doesn't it? It gives glimpses into potentially hidden information, and it makes you think about the very nature of what's possible with our technology. Or maybe technology that isn't ours.
It pushes the boundaries of what we consider plausible.
Exactly. So here's a final thought to leave you with. Given these descriptions, technology allowing instant direction changes, no moving parts, creating its own internal gravity field. If such a technology, described as fundamentally simple, could exist, what other basic principles of physics might we currently misunderstand? Or maybe, what principles have we yet to fully discover right here on Earth?
It definitely makes you wonder what else might be out there, or even right under our noses.
Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.